Hello and welcome to my April 2024 report on the electrical systems at our property in Huntingdonshire, England. I thought I'd better add some narration to this one to clarify some of the issues following the installation of our smart meter in February. But first, here's the outline diagram showing the main components of the current system, and you can find further details in the description below the video. Here's the first graph showing the electrical energy coming into the property each day from our two solar arrays and from the grid. The solar figures come from the daily readings of the two solar generation meters. The total solar production this month was 667 units, an average of 22.2 units per day. The lowest production was just 8.9 units on the 27th and the highest was 38.3 on the 30th. 340 grid units were imported, with 25 at higher rate and the rest at lower rate. If you've seen some of my monthly reports from last year, you'll have noticed that there is now much more red on the top of many of the columns, denoting a larger draw of higher cost units, and 7.2% of the grid energy coming in at the higher rate is much more than the 1 or 2% in previous years. Up to the 8th of February, the grid import figures came from daily readings of our old 3-phase Economy 7 meter. Easy to read, the two separate dials quickly told me each morning how much energy had been imported at low or night rate and how much at normal or day rate. As I mentioned in a previous video, after requesting a smart meter in September, we were eventually booked in for installation on December the 21st. I had been receiving emails since March warning of the scheduled switching off of the radio teleswitch service, which switched the old Economy 7 meter between low and normal rates, and also switched on and off the dedicated low rate circuit to the storage heaters in the annex. The signal to the switch is broadcast alongside BBC Radio 4 longwave from a transmitter near Droitwich. The BBC has been trying to cease this service for well over a decade due to running out of spare valves, but has been forced to continue for various reasons, one of which is said to be that it was used by Britain's nuclear deterrent submarines to determine whether the UK had suffered a nuclear attack. Anyway, at the time of booking for my smart meter installation, the RTS switch off was scheduled to be March 2024, but that has now been put back again and is currently scheduled for June 2025. The main reason for this further delay seems to be that there are still thousands of old Economy 7 and other multi-rate meters reliant on the signal, which have not yet been replaced by smart meters. My December the 21st appointment was cancelled on the 14th. I immediately tried to rebook with EDF, but with engineers able to install a 3-phase smart meter being very rare, a date couldn't be given to me immediately, and I was told you'll hear from the team shortly. Eventually, I was given an appointment on the 8th of February. The engineer told me that he was one of only two covering 3-phase installations over a large area in this part of the country. As expected, the smart meter was initially programmed with the details for the existing Economy 7 tariff which we were on. The switching of the dedicated low-rate supply to the storage heaters is now done by a contactor controlled by the smart meter, and everything worked as it should, with the meter sending readings to EDF every half hour and the storage heaters coming on and going off at the right times. The day after the installation, the 9th of February, I applied for the EDF Go Electric overnight tariff, and this was eventually processed on the 22nd. However, the smart meter didn't get programmed with the new details. At some stage, it started switching the contactor on at midnight instead of midnight and switching it off at 7 AM. So it seemed I was on Economy 6.5. The Go Electric tariff has a 5-hour low rate period from midnight to 5 AM GMT. So the storage heaters weren't getting any input for the first half hour and continued to take energy for 2 hours from 5 AM to 7 AM, which was now the higher rate. The second Powerwall I had installed last year came to the rescue, as the two Powerwalls were able to supply this energy rather than the grid without the danger of running out of energy before the end of the day. The meter received an update on the 1st of March. It began recording all units as higher rate units and shows a cost based on the old higher rate price. The meter display and the in-home display just provide me with a lot of useless incorrect data. I can't see how much grid energy was taken at low rate and how much at high rate. I questioned EDF as to why the meter wasn't programmed with the new tariff's details, but I've been told that that was not how they used the smart meter for this so-called smart tariff. It's not that smart, having a fixed price for units taken in the 5-hour low rate period and another fixed price for units taken in the 19-hour higher rate period. Very similar to Economy 7, apart from the 7 being changed to a 5. The Energy Hub section of the EDF app tells me, a day or two later, how much energy was used in total during each day and what the electricity cost was for that day, including the standing charge. From those two figures, it is possible to calculate from a couple of simultaneous equations how many units were being charged at higher rate and how many at lower rate. I can also see in the EDF app Energy Hub section how much energy is being recorded on the EDF system for each half hour, in kilowatt hours to 2 decimal places. But this is an approximation as their system is recording to a higher degree of accuracy, perhaps to 3 decimal places, a thousandth of a kilowatt hour or a watt hour. Due to the large red blobs appearing on my graph, I started to record and add up the half-hourly figures, 10 each day for the low rate period and 38 for the high rate period, which are so small that they don't register on the graph. On the 22nd of April, we see the largest red blob. The EDF app said that 18.33 units were taken that day at a cost of £2.73. From those figures, I calculated that that meant that about 3.18 units were charged at high rate and 15.15 at low rate. But, adding up the half-hourly figures, the same EDF app gave me a total of only 0.40 high rate units and 18.12 low rate units. The two totals of the numbers of units don't agree exactly due to my calculations being done using figures corrected to 2 decimal places. But using maximum possible errors, there is no way that 0.4 can be increased to 3.18. The EDF agent, who has had to enjoy my barrage of questions concerning the lack of proper programming of the smart meter for over 2 months, has said that she will investigate this matter and come back to me in around a week, and that was nearly a fortnight ago. So, does anyone else have a similar experience with smart meters? I imagine that there might not be too many people who look at numbers with as much enthusiasm as I do, but those big red blobs were what led me down this path. Back to the monthly report. The Tesla app stated that 37.9 units were exported to the grid, which was 3.8% of the total electrical energy coming in and 5.7% of the solar energy produced. The solar contribution to the month's electricity input was 66.2%. The second graph shows how the electrical energy reached the property in the car, either directly or via the Powerwalls. The car's home charging figures come from the MyEnergy app, and the Tesla app supplies the rest of the figures. 40% of the energy came directly from solar, and an additional 23.6% was solar coming via the Powerwalls, giving a total solar contribution to the energy used of around 63.6% to 1 decimal place. Our Zappi charger put nearly 150 solar units into the car with nothing taken from the grid, so the meagre 180 miles driven in the month were at a cost of 0 pence per mile for fuel. This graph shows the energy going into and coming out of the 2 Powerwalls each day, as reported by the Tesla app. 85.1% of the energy which went into the battery came back out, lower than was usual last year, but better than last month. And this is the self-powered graph based on figures from the Tesla app, which reported that the proportion of self-power, which is energy supplied via the Powerwall or directly from solar, was 75%. And here's the graph showing the solar southwest production over the years since installation. 344 units makes this the 11th best April out of the 13 years. April's updated arithmetic mean is 395.3 and the median is 407. Here is the cumulative year-to-date graph for the production from the southwest array. 2024 remains in 12th place out of the 13 years for the first 4 months of the year. This graph shows the daily output from the 2 solar arrays for the past 366 days, with both moving averages struggling to rise. And this is the distribution of the energy input and export for the whole of the past year, and this graph shows just the daily solar production for that same period. This final graph shows a summary of our grid activity over the years since we moved here in the summer of 2011. The grey and red lines show the number of low rate and normal rate grid units imported each month as measured on the left hand scale. The monthly electricity cost is shown by the yellow line and the right hand scale, and the green line shows the monthly contribution to the feed-in tariff payments for the old Southwest Arrays production. And I'll give my voice a rest and leave you with the Tesla app graphs for each day of April.